Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well, having a good Saturday. Happy Royal Rumble weekend. It's a massive weekend of stuff to get into here on the channel. But we're going to start off today talking about some news stories. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, especially with it being Royal Rumble weekend and last night's edition of Friday Night SmackDown on Fox. So let's get straight into today's stories, and let's start off with the return of Braun Strowman to WWE television, because yes, last night on Friday Night SmackDown, Braun Strowman has returned to WWE. Now, last night on the Royal Rumble Go Home edition of SmackDown on Fox, the Monster Among Men made his big return. Now, it looks like, and I think it's been confirmed now, that Strowman will be participating in the 30-man Royal Rumble match at Sunday's pay-per-view event. Now, Strowman's return came after the 10-man main event, which we'll get into in a second, because I have a lot of opinions on that, which included Raw superstars as part of the quarterly brand-to-brand invitational. Sheamus, Daniel Bryan, Shinsuke Nakamura, Otis, and WWE Intercontinental Champion Big E defeated Mr. Money in the Bank, The Miz, John Morrison, AJ Styles, Sami Zayn, and Cesaro. Now, the match started off as just a singles match. It was just AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan, but that then ended in a DQ, and with always the case with WWE, if you've got someone at ringside, they're wearing gear. If you've seen someone wearing their ring gear that night, they're going to be wrestling at some point, whether they're just in a promo and they're not scheduled for a match yet, they're going to have a match at some point. So it was a DQ for Daniel Bryan as the winner after Sami Zayn interfered. The match then went to a 6-man tag team match of Bryan, Big E, and Cesaro versus Nakamura, AJ, and Zayn. That match, once again, ended by DQ after The Miz and John Morrison interrupted. Then Braun Strowman's return came as Miz, Morrison, and AJ were triple teaming Sheamus following the main event. Strowman then ran wild at ringside. He then entered the ring to destroy Cesaro and Sami Zayn. Braun Strowman then stood tall in the middle of the ring and posed as the Go Home show went off the air. Now, Braun Strowman, of course, he's been off of WWE television since receiving a storyline suspension on Tuesday, November 24. Strowman was suspended indefinitely after putting his hands on WWE official Adam Pearce during a Raw segment the night before. The storyline was at the time that Strowman was upset over not receiving a WWE Championship match with WWE Champion Drew McIntyre, which he felt like he deserved. Strowman responded to a WWE tweet saying that he's back, adding, quote, "and badder than ever, hashtag no one is safe." Now, first of all, I mean, there's a lot to break down there. There is so much to break down from that SmackDown last night. Let's touch on Strowman. You can see him there for a second. He looks phenomenal. He's absolutely in the best shape of his career. If you followed his Instagram or social media post recently, the guy, he did have surgery. I think he had minor surgery on a knee issue that was bothering him. But during that period of time, he's leaned up. He's, I think, one of the lowest weights of his life, frankly, and career. This is a guy that was a former powerlifter. And he's in amazing shape. He is in unbelievable shape. Looks to be in the shape of his career. Was certainly moving around better. You know for a fact Vince McMahon has a fascination with big men anyway, but especially big men that look like that. Braun Strowman, in my opinion, is coming back at the right time. He's coming back at around WrestleMania season. He's coming back with a lot of momentum. He's coming back fresh, and he's coming back looking better than ever. So I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if Braun Strowman gets a big push coming into WrestleMania season. Now, does that mean he's going to win the Royal Rumble on Sunday? I don't think he will, but stranger things have happened and will happen over the course of the history of WWE. So anything's possible. Now, when it comes to Braun Strowman returning on SmackDown, a Raw superstar returning on SmackDown, what's that all about? The quarterly brand-to-brand invitational. Man, this is just so frustrating for me, because the way that I look at it is that WWE, they can set their own rules, right? They can set their own rules, but the issue is when it comes to WWE and this whole brand split, and I'm in favor of the brand split. I want the brand split. They've got a massive roster. They should split them into 2 shows, but my kind of brand split is a hard and fast brand split. You know, it's completely separate. There's no real crossover. Maybe at WrestleMania, or like I did before, 4 times a year, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, WrestleMania, Survivor Series. That's your crossover. Nothing else. No other crossover, no quarterly brand-to-brand invitational. No, oh, this week they can. Oh, actually, wow, this week, you know. WWE create their own rules, but the laughable element about it is they create their own rules for things like the brand split, and then they break them just a couple of weeks later. You've got Survivor Series was, what, 2 months ago, where you're competing for brand-to-brand supremacy, which brand is superior. During that period of time, the majority of Team Raw, for instance, in the men's side of things, had been on the Raw brand for like 2 weeks. Why they would have loyalty to Raw at that point, I have no idea. There's no such thing as brand loyalty or brand supremacy because the brands are murkier than ever. It's ridiculous, and by all accounts, WWE is insisting on keeping the brand split because they want to offer 2 different products to the USA Network and to Fox. Fox wants a different product than they get on Monday nights for the USA Network. That makes a lot of sense to me. But the massive issue is that once things start going a little bit wrong, or once they don't know what to do, we can just put other people on the show. Why? Well, it's the brand-to-brand invitational, right? We can make stuff up. It's just... Again, the frustrating element of it is, look, ultimately, it's WWE's rules. They can do what they want. But they set their own rules for themselves, and then they break it. It's just, they back themselves into a corner with silly stuff, and then they break it, and they act like nobody cares. It's beyond frustrating from my point of view. So that was my point of view. And to be honest, SmackDown last night, I've been a big proponent of SmackDown recently. I think everyone has. I probably jinxed it in the preview of what we did on the channel, saying it's the best product on WWE television right now, because last night, that was a mess. That SmackDown was a mess last night. That, for SmackDown recently, because SmackDown, ever since Roman Reigns returned at SummerSlam, has been the best show on television in terms of pro wrestling. I think, you can talk about AEW Dynamite. SmackDown is a great show to watch. But last night, it was a mess. It was just an absolute mess. It just wasn't... It was so un-SmackDown-like. You had just chaos, the pacing was off, just logic wasn't there. That whole main event thing, whatever that was, we're going to have a singles match, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan. No, we're going to have a tag team match. No, it's going to be a 6-man. No, it's going to be an 8-man. No, it's going to be a 10-man. Just random Raw guys running out. Why? Oh, brand-to-brand invitational, right? It lacked so much logic. It lacked so much logic, and it was such a big eye roll. It really was a big eye roll, and I think of the casual fan at this point because they must be watching this going, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. And to that casual fan that's more inclined to turn off when things are bad or they don't make sense, they would have turned off and said, you know what, come on. I know, I get it. They wanted to feature the craziness and chaos of the Royal Rumble. They wanted to feature Raw and SmackDown guys last night. Why didn't they just promote it as that? Why didn't they just say, it's going to be a Royal Rumble special edition of SmackDown. Raw and SmackDown people are invited. Sonya Deville, she was in charge last night because Adam Pearce was away for a week after what happened last week on SmackDown with him, Reigns, and Heyman. Why didn't Sonya Deville just say, I wanted to feel the anticipation of the Royal Rumble and the chaos that comes with it, so I invited everyone. We've got an open border policy when it comes to SmackDown tonight. No brand split. Just do something like that. That would have been at least, it would have been frustrating, but at least it would have had some form of logic there. There would have been some form of explanation as to just, the brand-to-brand invitational. You remember, it's quarterly, but when it's not quarterly, because last year they did it so many times, even though they said it was quarterly. I mean, it was just ridiculous. It's so frustrating that they try and drive home in November, brand supremacy, brand loyalty. These are different brands and they're going to fight each other. And then just for the rest of the year, quarterly invitational, you can appear if you want to, all that kind of stuff. It's just BS. It's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating. So for me, that was a really frustrating SmackDown last night because, again, it was just chaos, unneeded chaos, and just lacked logic. And watching it was a real disappointment, I thought, because SmackDown has become so great recently, and it just felt like most of the stuff on the show last night, just the pacing was off, the logic was off, the storylines didn't make sense. It was going into the show, there wasn't a lot announced, and that usually should be a red flag, and it was. They didn't have a lot announced last night because probably the chaos that we saw on screen felt like, I guess, the chaos behind the scenes. It felt like an edition of Raw where not a lot makes sense, and you come out of it going, that was actually quite bad. So that was surprising. But look, when it comes to Braun Strowman and his return last night, he looks great. He's going to be in the Rumble. Do I think he'll win it? No. But he'll certainly, I think, be a major player as we go into WrestleMania season. So let's move on. Sticking with the WWE news, let's talk about Lana. Because Lana, of course, has been on the shelf. I use those air quotes because reportedly she doesn't actually have any injuries right now. Lana is reportedly not dealing with a legitimate injury. Now, as noted previously, Lana took to Twitter this week and mentioned how she's still wearing a cast and an ankle brace. She noted that she can't wait to come back to in-ring action for the injury she suffered back in December on Raw. To clarify, the injuries announced to Lana were part of storylines and she's not legitimately hurt. This is according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Now, it was noted that Lana may have a good shot at being a surprise entrant in Sunday's 30-woman Royal Rumble match. The December 14 Raw saw Lana defeat Nia Jax in singles action, but after the match, WWE did an injury angle where Jax and Shayna Baszler took Lana out, focusing on her arm and leg until Raw Women's Champion Asuka made the save. Now, because of this, Lana was then pulled from the WWE TLC pay-per-view, where she was scheduled to team with Asuka to challenge Jax and Baszler for the Women's Tag Team Championships. Now, it was noted by WWE at the time that Lana had suffered MCL knee injury and a fracture on her elbow. Now, of course, we all know now, Charlotte Flair ended up returning to WWE as Asuka's partner, and they captured the Women's Tag Team Championships. Now, at the time of recording right now, they are still the Tag Team Champions going into Sunday's pay-per-view, where they will defend against Baszler and Nia Jax in the rematch. Now, at the time, of course, it was speculated that Lana could end up eliminating Jax or doing some kind of angle with her during Sunday's Women's Royal Rumble match if she does return. Jax spent a few months beating Lana up, putting her through tables before the injury angle on December 14. So there's a lot of speculation, should we say, about what's going to happen right now when it comes to Lana. We mentioned at the time that we didn't think really, and I never truly felt that Lana was legitimately injured. So I do expect it to be one of those surprise entries on Sunday. I do expect it to be in the Royal Rumble match, and like has been speculated by a lot of people, I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if Lana is the one to eliminate Nia Jax and possibly even Shayna Baszler too from the Women's Royal Rumble match on Sunday. What I will say though is talk about halting the momentum, because I'll be honest, I mean, I've been on here on the channel, you can probably find it. I wasn't too sold on the whole sympathetic angle for Lana, putting her through the table every single week, but I'll hold my hands up when I'm wrong. It worked. Lana was getting over as this sympathetic babyface, in the sense that they, when it comes to Survivor Series, you had her out on the steel steps. She was the sole survivor for Team Raw without really getting into the match. You felt bad for her. You felt sorry for her. At the time, there was a documentary that came out on the WWE Network that was really well done as well, giving you a behind-the-scenes look at how hard Lana is trying to improve in the ring, how much she's had to deal with the hate on social media and all that kind of stuff, and it was working. You felt sorry for her, and this is someone that was a really hated character only a few months prior to that when it comes to the Lashley stuff and that, and talk about, I said, halting the momentum. Sometimes being off of TV helps you, but at this period of time, I don't know if it has helped Lana, because it feels like even though it was, 6 weeks ago or so, people have already moved on. People have moved on to the Charlotte Flair and what's going on now. People moved on with Asuka versus Alexa Bliss and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if this time off has done her favours. I do expect it to return, as I mentioned, on Sunday in the Women's Royal Rumble match, but has the time off been beneficial to her? Only time will tell, I suppose, but I just feel like with the time off, she's moved down the pecking line as opposed to going up it at the moment. So let's move on. Let's talk about WWE Backstage, because, of course, WWE Backstage is returning for a special tonight, actually, on FS1. And it's going to have an exclusive match on it with Royal Rumble implications, because Natalya, as you can see right there, Natalya and Tamina Snuka has been announced for Saturday's special edition of WWE Backstage on FS1. Now, it's going to have some special Royal Rumble implications, because the winner of this match will earn the number 30 spot in Sunday's Women's Royal Rumble match. Now, as noted, WWE previously announced that Saturday's Backstage special will also feature the reveal of the number 30 spot in the Men's Royal Rumble match and the reveal of 1 and 2 in the Women's Rumble. But I guess things have changed. I don't know. I don't know if they're still going to have the number 30 spot for the Men's Royal Rumble. Everything's changing when it comes to this Royal Rumble pay-per-view. As far as what I've heard and read, and I think what everyone watching this has probably read, the Royal Rumble in terms of what's going to happen is so much in flux that they still have no idea. Between the time of now, at the time of recording, and the Royal Rumble event tomorrow, plans would have changed about 10 million times. So it doesn't surprise me. They say it on SmackDown at the moment all the time, cards subject to change, and that's the case when it comes to WWE Backstage tonight. Now, tonight's Backstage special, as I mentioned, will air on FS1 at 8 p.m. Eastern Time and replay at midnight, and again on Royal Rumble Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. WWE Hall of Famer Booker T, Paige, and Renee Young will be the hosts. Of course, WWE Backstage aired from November 2019 through mid-March of this year after production was stopped due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Fox Sports then announced in June that the show was no longer airing. A special post-SmackDown edition of the show was scheduled to air back in October, on October 23, but it was nixed at the last minute and replaced with an airing of Talking Smack. Saturday's show will be the first Backstage episode to air since last year. So when it comes to Backstage being back, I didn't hate the show. I didn't really think it offered loads, I don't think it was the studio show that we all thought, because it wasn't objective. It was still WWE spun. I know it was a Fox show, and they kind of framed it as, well, you know, it's a Fox show, so they actually can do what they want. They can say what they want on there. They've got CM Punk on there. That's not a WWE call. It wasn't, but I think my problem with Backstage at the time was it was still very WWE centric. They wouldn't openly go to criticize WWE things. Punk would when he was on there because he's CM Punk and he don't care. But a lot of the time it still was very in storyline. It still was in very what was actually going on within the realms of WWE storytelling. And I don't think that's what people wanted. I think that people wanted a legitimate sports studio show. I think they wanted people talking about, oh, he needs to improve his bumping in the ring. He needs to work on his promos when he shouldn't be addressing the hard cam all the time. People wanted that kind of insider information from legends and from analysts, and we just didn't get that. I think that was probably one of the bigger problems with WWE Backstage. As far as the match, I mean, what a random match. What a random match for a really coveted spot. In a way, I think Natalya will win, but in a way, I hope Tamina wins, because that would show what a farce, you know, the number 30 spot, coveted number 30 spot. Who's going to be number 30? One of the big aspects of the Royal Rumble match. He's going to have that best Royal Rumble number 30 spot, Tamina Snuka. It would be like, what? What? So I think Natalya will win. What's interesting, of course, with the changes, as I mentioned, that everything's always in flux when it comes to the Royal Rumble, but especially this year. I think that obviously there was it previous reports that it was going to be the number 30 spot for the Men's Rumble, also revealed that hasn't been the case. That says to me that WWE might be planning something big. They might be planning some form of return, or ultimately they just haven't made their mind up yet. So anything's a possibility when it comes to that. Let's move on and talk finally about Jon Moxley. We were talking about Renee Young there, so I guess Jon Moxley's a smooth transition, as it were, because Jon Moxley has returned to New Japan. Because Jon Moxley, IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion Jon Moxley, appeared at the end of this week's New Japan Strong to confront Kenta, who earned a shot at his title by winning the New Japan Cup USA tournament last August. Now, Moxley appeared in the aftermath of the main event between Lio Rush and El Phantasmo. After Rush picked up the win, Bullet Club members Kenta and Hikailo attacked Rush, Fred Rosa, and TJP. That's when the lights went off and Moxley appeared with the IWGP United States Championship and laid out Hikailo and ELP with his bouts. Kenta and Moxley then traded blows, with Kenta attempting to hit the AEW star with the GTS. Moxley then countered and hit his Death Rider DDT finishing move. The show then ended with Moxley cutting a promo in which he said Kenta's dream of taking away his title just became a nightmare. Moxley then vowed to face Kenta in Tokyo one of these days without specifying a time or place. Now, Moxley became the IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion when he beat Lance Archer at Wrestle Kingdom 14 last year. He's been unable to travel to Japan to defend his championship as part, obviously, due to the ongoing pandemic. What is interesting, and I think a lot of people are picking up on this, what is interesting about this, of course, is that previously the AEW exclusivity deal said, look, you can go to Japan, you can compete on shows in the indies, maybe if they're not televised or stuff like that, but you know, major promotions that have got US television, that's something slightly different, and it looks like that's changed, and I think maybe the pandemic's forced their hand a little bit when it comes to that, but it's certainly interesting. It's no doubt it's certainly interesting, and Moxie's always reaffirmed he wants still to compete in New Japan. He wants to have that New Japan run, and regardless of the pandemic, be damned, he's going to have it. When they're going to face off in Tokyo, I don't know. That's a difficult thing to do even now. Still, the travel thing, you can travel from the United States to Japan. It's not impossible. People have done it. But you're quarantining for like 2 weeks. And so that's 2 weeks there and 2 weeks back. What does that look like? Can Jon Moxley realistically be off AEW television for 4 weeks? I don't know. That's probably an issue there. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see the match happen. And hopefully it happens sooner rather than later, because that means that the pandemic might actually be slowing down and be over. But I don't know about that one. So, but it was great to see Moxley in New Japan, and hopefully we get this Kenta match soon. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, New Japan, Impact Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved with the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds. if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.